Well, welcome everybody to our adapted Gather and Grow series this summer. We usually gather in person to do some walks around people's gardens and homesteads, and it's always fun to explore with everybody. But we're very happy to be able to explore in sort of a new format this year and to have some far-flung friends be able to join us for these. That's a nice silver lining of the new format this year. And we're very excited to talk about Incredible Edible Milbridge tonight, and very excited to have Zabet here with us to show us around virtually the gardens. It's a great project, growing food and community, plus just beautiful. I know a few people I'm connected with on social media have stopped by this summer and shared some beautiful pictures of the gardens growing. Looks like they're thriving this summer. So I'm excited to look around as well. And I'll turn it over to you to tell us all about the project.
Great. Well, hello everyone, I'm Zabet, and I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but I just wanted to say hello and thank you all for coming. It seems like it's from all edges of the not the globe, but from the US at least, which is really exciting. So thanks for joining. And okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you don't see all of my tabs. Okay. Does everyone see a bunch of sunflowers?
Yes,
okay.
Coming through beautifully.
Okay, great. Okay, so my name is Zabet, and I work with Women for Healthy Rural Living. We are a small nonprofit in Milbridge, Maine, which is in the geography of Maine. It's about maybe it's coastal and about 45 minutes northeast of Ellsworth. We're kind of smack dab in down east Maine and Washington County. The nonprofit that I work with, Women for Healthy Rural Living, our mission is to promote the health and wellness of the woman, her family, and her community. And we do that in like a myriad of different ways. But I'm going to talk about Incredible Edible Milbridge, which is a community initiative, a wellness initiative. And so I'm going to basically give like a little overview, because we are a nonprofit, a little overview of Incredible Edible Milbridge before going into like a garden tour. So Incredible Edible Milbridge is a series of public pick your own vegetable gardens and education initiatives designed to create a community that is stronger, healthier, and more food independent. And so how we're doing that essentially is by creating these public vegetable gardens that are completely free, pick your own vegetable gardens. Anyone in the community can come and harvest no matter what their background or age or anything. And then we also have a series of education initiatives that this year it's been a little bit different, but typically we have free workshops throughout the year that are, again, open to all, varying ages, varying topics, typically, you know, basics of gardening, how to compost with worms, how to, we have a series of cooking classes. So it's kind of ranging the gamut, but the main idea is to promote gardening education and to make our community healthier and stronger. So how we do this, I'm going to focus on the gardens. We started in Incredible Edible, started in 2013. We got the idea, our executive director of the Women for Healthy Rural Living, she actually listened to a TED Talk from this group in Todmorden, England. And they were doing basically the same thing, having all these vegetable gardens that were free and open to the community. In that case, Todmorden, England. And we, you know, Washington County and Milbridge, Maine, like we have a ton of food insecurity. We have a lot of people are struggling. And our executive director was like, well, why can't we do something like that here? And she brought it to the board, and ended up the board and the community really kind of got really excited about this and started moving forward with it. And so in 2013, we started just with all these pocket gardens. So pocket gardens are these small little raised beds in front of businesses around town. More than 50 people volunteered. It was very much a community effort. The local hardware store donated lumber. It just, like, there was a lot of community excitement, and it just kind of built and grew from there. So here is a photo of just someone harvesting from, this garden is in front of the Milbridge Medical Center, and she's just harvesting sage. And completely truthfully, I was the one taking the photo and was making her pause. But it's just everyone's really supportive of this initiative, and it's such and I'll get more into that in a minute. So in 2014, the momentum was really building with, we have all these little raised beds around town, and momentum really was building, and community excitement was growing. And we actually had a local business owner approach us, the owner of the Red Barn Motel, and she approached us to say that she has this piece of land adjacent to her motel. Would we want to start a vegetable garden there? And we did, and it became our largest garden at the time, 1,400 square feet of vegetable square feet, and we produced on average around 3,000 pounds of produce. Again, all of these, it's completely free and open to anyone. We have a team of gardeners, which I'll go into, but the people that were really helpful, especially with the Red Barn Garden here, were farmer Michael Hayden and Janice Ledsvines, integral people throughout this, but they really helped break ground for the Red Barn Garden. And here are some more photos that you can see. That's the tool shed back there, that little red tool shed. But it's, yeah, all of it's just a lot of food it's producing. The soil actually is incredible. We've just been loading the soil with compost, and it's really amazing now. It's been going for quite some time at this point. We grow pretty much, sorry, there's an echo. Yeah, we grow a lot of, especially at the Red Barn, but in general, we tend to grow fan favorites. So over here, that would be potatoes, beets, zucchinis, tomatoes, kind of this classic, green beans, sugar snap peas. Anyone, like, as soon as the sugar snap pea kind of season starts, like, the gardens are flooded. Everyone loves sugar snap peas, which is really exciting because I do too. Let's see. And yeah, so here's another photo. So yeah, it started as this way to, feed our neighbors and help the people in our community that might be slightly disadvantaged or not able to afford, like, food, to be able to provide a healthy meal for them. Essentially, all we ask is that people respect the gardens and that they take home, their fair share. Not like, don't harvest the whole garden. Harvest what you're going to eat for one night. So it started as this way to become make our community more food independent. But what also started developing was this really strong community behind this. Like, a lot of people, there was a lot of pride, and still is a lot of pride behind Incredible Edible Milbridge and the gardens. People have said, Milbridge is the garden town. And it brings people together from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds. I think in Maine in particular, but in general, there can be a stigma attached to going to a food pantry, for instance. And this kind of alleviates that. Like, it's free, but it's open to anyone. So you can be harvesting, and many times this happens, you can be harvesting with someone that you would never, ever, ever really interact with on a day-to-day level. You wouldn't, people say that they come to these gardens for the community, for the food, but also for the community. So one also aspect of our local community is that we actually have a pretty strong Hispanic community. And so this is something I just wanted to highlight the fact that we are trying, there's so much more to do, but we are also trying to incorporate and trying to embrace our Hispanic and Latinx neighbors. And we've been doing this by creating these ready to pick and don't pick signs. Oh, basically all of our signs are bilingual. And these signs, they serve two reasons. One, to kind of, you know, be bilingual vegetable signs, but also because one thing we've realized at the community gardens that people will just pick whenever. They might not know when things are ready to harvest or when they're not. And so these very like obvious, they're kind of glaring and kind of a little ugly. These signs, they at least kind of get the idea out that, hey, wait, don't pick this quite yet. You know, with the Swiss chard, let me grow a little bit longer. With the Red Barn Garden, we also do a bunch of education initiatives. So here you'll see in this photo, we have the local elementary school comes to the Red Barn Garden pretty much every year. Again, last year was a little different, but the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten tend to plant pumpkins, which is really fun. We usually have an all-school planting day that people plant green beans and potatoes. And in general, it's just really, I'm the children's gardener, so I get really psyched about this. Like, it's really fun to see kids just like totally having a blast. And at this point, a blast outside and in the garden, I should say. And at this point, these kids have been going, you know, some of the kids that we started with our kindergarten, and they've been there for a number of years. They know the Red Barn Garden. They know about garden. They've gone through planting pumpkins and potatoes and beans, and it's just really exciting and cool to see how excited they are and the knowledge that they have gained. And I can talk about that forever, so I'll move on. So momentum was building, Red Barn Garden, exciting. And about in 2000 and I believe it was 16, I might be off there. No, 2000, yeah. We realized that we needed even more space. And there was like, we wanted to have another garden or more gardens to produce even more. And there was this 4.6 acre of land in downtown Milbridge that had been on the market for a while. And we kind of had that idea, like maybe it'd be good to, you know, see if we could do something there. And we we get connected with Maine Coast Heritage Trust, and they bought this parcel of land. And we worked with them to you know, this is our steering committee going through the land, looking at the layout, kind of determining the boundaries. This piece of land is located right off of Narragansett Bay, so there's a lot of migrating shorebirds and just things to consider as you're developing a park. Here you'll see this, again, the steering committee, a lot of excited faces, a lot of discussion. One thing about nonprofits is that things take a lot longer than you think, because the discussion, it's a group process and a group decision, so it goes on for forever, which is fine, you know. Just comes with the territory. So we ended up coming up with this plan, which is it looks a little bit different, but this is a plan that we came up with, and you'll see. I don't even need to go into it necessarily, but it was a grand vision that we had. And in 2018, we were able to break ground, which was really exciting. It took us a couple of years of negotiating and planning, and we broke ground, as you can see here, with the idea that this would be a community wellness park that would be have a walking trail, but also, and you know, eventually a children's playground, and maybe a gazebo and other features, but also would be another space for some vegetable gardens. And so here you see in the first year, we actually broke ground and then tilled up the soil and planted buckwheat as a cover crop. Here's a aerial view of it. So yeah, that's the Milbridge Commons that as of fall of 2018, and it's changed quite a bit, but this was super exciting when we first saw this photo. It's amazing, but also in general, just this has been a really exciting process for us. And those, so you can kind of see in this photo, here here you can see my mouse, the brown, these are the vegetable gardens. And we're going to have a children's playground right here as well. And then we're actually going to eventually have an apple orchard along this outer perimeter. And there's more. So the grand opening of Milbridge Commons happened the fall of 2018. It was a pretty exciting time. We had many things going on, including a salad competition, which was really fun. But it was just in general a super, yeah, just really, everyone was really happy that this was happening. And this is a photo of the event. And it built and built, and then 2019, it was kind of, most of you are probably gardeners, so you might have remembered that it was a really hard year for gardening in terms of the season, it being super cold and wet into very late in the year. It was just and then a drought in the middle of the summer. It was just a hard year for gardening last year. And the soil at the Milbridge Commons basically is like complete clay underneath, and we put in a lot of peat, and so there wasn't a ton of nutrients, and so we weren't able to grow much, which was kind of a disappointment. You know, it was like this huge, like we broke ground, we had established it, and then our first year we weren't able to do much with it, but we were able to add a lot of compost and start working on the soil, building up the soil, which then led to this year, which it is incredible. I might be biased, but I don't think I am. It's really an incredible garden. This is just one photo, and you'll see many more. But it's this beautiful park and this beautiful garden, and people are coming from all over. We're getting so much attention and so many good feedback about it. You know, just like everyone, it seems like knows about us all of a sudden and what we're doing, and that just seems so rewarding, especially like because we have put a ton of effort into it. In particular, the gardeners have put so much effort into this, and I just want to again mention them, just because they've done so much for us. Michael Hayden is the farmer of Folklore Farm, and he's primarily focused on the Red Barn Motel Garden, but he's also very much integral, essentially, to what we do here with Incredible Edible Milbridge. He often offers, just a lot of his time and expertise and his materials and supplies, and helps, grow the seedlings. And he's just he's in the middle there. I don't know. That's him. This was during a garden work party, so lots of fun times. And then our second the lead gardener at the Milbridge Commons this year is Janice Lesbines, and she is a professional landscaper. She's done it for her whole life, and she is just a magician, honestly. She loves
phone arrives, am I not supposed to know about it?
She loves curved garden beds. She's just extremely knowledgeable. She loves flowers, and she's so hardworking and dedicated to this project, and it really shows in the garden this year. The third gardener is me. I'm not gonna give myself too many accolades here, but I'm the third member of the team, and I work with the children. Typically, I'm the children's gardener. I'm also not that photogenic, so I couldn't find a photo of me smiling. I develop more of the educational stuff at the school, and work with the children there, and also in the gardens. We couldn't do this without the volunteers. This year specifically, we've had so many volunteers coming and helping. It's been a super, super dry year, as I'm sure most of you know. And we've had volunteer after volunteer after volunteer just coming and watering the garden, and it's been incredible. We had the Pleasant River Garden Club coming, and they took turns watering. And it's just been this community-wide effort, which has just been so, it's just been incredible to watch and to witness. We often, yes, Hannah?
Oh, sorry. These are beautiful photos, and everyone's watering there in the dry year, and someone is wondering what the water source is for the
that's
gardens.
a great question. It's a town water. Because we're located right in town, so it's town water source. Good question. So the water bill can get kind of expensive, but we're working on figuring out maybe a better system of watering next year with timers and kind of figuring out. It's always a learning curve, so just figuring that out. This is our first 2019. We had a work party at the gardens, and we haven't been able to have one this year because of everything going on, but we are excited. This is something that we like to do, like have these big old parties where people come and weed for us. But like, no, they also have a good time. And it's, we usually have music, as you can see, supporters of Incredible Edible. And so, yeah, here's a few more photos of our garden. This Milbridge Commons garden, this year we estimate it's producing about 4,000 pounds of produce. It's 18,000 square feet. It's a beautiful location where people can come and harvest vegetables, but also walk this walking track. And it's right, as I said, it's right along Narraguegas Bay. It's a beautiful location. Here, oops. So we have a bunch of different vegetables. I thought I'd show you just some of them. There's so many, I couldn't really do a ton of photos, but these are leeks, as you can tell. They're on their way out, and they're good, but they're you know, it's nearing the end of the season. Janice specifically loves to do different ways and creative ways of trellising, and you can see that here with these, well, this is a pretty normal way of trellising beans, but these beautiful beans. We also, this year at the Commons, we were able to actually start a pollinator garden as well. So we called this the Ed Flannigan Pollinator Garden. This photo was taken by Brittany Ray, and she's a local supporter of our organization and group, and it's an absolutely incredible photo. You'll, in the left of it, you'll see this dog, which it's it's a fake dog, and obviously, and it is, we put it there for geese patrol because as being right on the water, as you can see, we have a lot of geese coming and trying to land, and which is not that much of a problem. It's just their excrements that is a little bit of the problem. Anyhow, but the pollinator garden, we dedicated this to Ed Flannigan because he, of Wyman's, the blueberry company, because he was a really early supporter of what we were doing. And he's also a very huge advocate for pollinators. So we dedicated this pollinator to his name, and it has just a bunch of gorgeous flowers. I am not a flower gardener, so I'm just like, if anyone asks me questions about the flowers, I don't know. I'm just gonna say I don't know. But I can always find out. Janice was the one who organized and designed this as well. And you can see we have these pollinator, we have signs that these are specifically for pollinators. This actually is a kind of good photo of the commons. You can kind of see here, there's this corner, and actually it's not that good of a photo. It's an okay photo. It's just a very beautiful addition to the garden, and it really makes, you know, gardening, vegetable gardening is great, but it's only, we have to also support the things that feed us, not just sorry, we have to support the whole community, you know, the wildlife and the natural resources, and having a garden specifically for pollinators is super important and something we feel strongly about. The children's garden, this is my garden. It's located in the little corner on the left of the garden, kind of when you looked at that. Well, anyhow, it's still in the works. So I didn't take many photos of this, but this, you'll see there's a little willow fort that didn't make it, but we still planted it. So now it's a bunch of trellises, and growing up it is sweet peas and red runner beans. What we have envisioned for the children's garden is to kind of make it a living laboratory, essentially a place for children to explore and to garden if they can. We're hoping to have family-friendly workshops and just to encourage kids to come and explore and play and learn about gardening. Here we have these are Bill Arnold, who is another supporter of ours. He made these amazing bee homes, basically, that I'd actually really like to do this with children, to make little bee houses for native bees. And so that's stuck in the middle of the children's garden. And this is the last photo I think I have of my slide. I guess I whiffed through that. I was a little nervous. But it's just a great place, and I'd love to answer any more questions, or yeah, talk more in depth about it. So thank you. Sorry it was so fast.
Thank you. What a beautiful garden, beautiful setting. It looks at an amazing growing season. Everything looks so lush and happy. We do have a question here in the chat about who decides the layout each year for the
Oh,
garden.
what a good question. It is up to the gardeners, and so we trust Janice and Michael and me to kind of make that layout decision. It's funny, in the Red Barn Garden, so when we've made the Red Barn Garden, actually kind of Michael had one side and Janice had the other, and it was so funny because Michael just made all these straight lines, which is great because he's a farmer, that makes sense to him, and then Janice made all these like very curvy, beautiful looking beds, and that made sense to her. So it's kind of a funny, you know, it's up to the gardeners, and we give our gardeners full autonomy, essentially.
That sounds like lots of gardens I know that are kind of divided up in different sections like that. Another question in the chat here is about the soil care. You mentioned some of the things you're doing to take care of the soils there, or build up soils in your new beds, but anything you want to add about what systems you use there?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that we do is compost. We compost every year. We add a pretty generous heaping of compost to all of our gardens. This year I've been starting to actually do soil tests, which we haven't really been doing, but I do it with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, and I'm starting to get kind of a better idea of what nutrients we need, but really compost, lime, and this year in the Milbridge Commons, we've been using gypsum, which kind of breaks down the clay a little bit, and because the garden is still, you know, there's compost, there's peat, and then underneath it all is just this layer of clay. So.
And someone asked about the soil test, which you answered. And do you ever use lobster shell compost?
I have not. I don't know about the others, but I'm pretty sure not. But I've heard good things about lobster shell compost.
Do you guys make most of your own compost there?
The size of the garden doesn't really allow us to do so. We do compost all of our, everything that we grow, essentially. That's not food, we compost it, but we don't actually, that's more kind of an amendment, but not really, we actually end up buying the compost and having it brought in.
Yeah. And a question about paid staff and volunteers. How many paid staff total? And I think there was a question earlier too about how many volunteers help out in the gardens.
The volunteer question, I actually not sure I can answer because it's changed. Like in the beginning, it was like we had this defined number of about 50, but it's really changed every year. Last year, I would say we didn't have a ton of volunteers, but this year we've had so many volunteers. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to say like why that is. If it's, this year it's been kind of, maybe people have just wanted to get outside more and be gardening. But it's been really exciting, and I hope that we continue to have a lot of volunteers. The garden club itself, I think is over 24 of people. As for paid staff, so Michael and Janice are part-time contractors. I work also part-time, but I also am the assistant director for Rural, so I have kind of like a split job duty there. And those, Janice and Michael have some help, but they kind of pay them off of their own wages essentially, like, but we don't have much in terms of paid staff, and it is definitely the biggest cost that we have. So it's something that we honestly have to talk about and think about every year, because it's a very big and important question.
It's a big question. Another great question here. How are you planning to accommodate global warming in terms of your plant selection and garden evolution?
Whoa.
A big question to tackle.
It's a big question. I think probably just I think in general, just choosing your varieties and learning what is most adaptable to your climate. We're also, something I totally forgot to mention is that we're actually getting a greenhouse this fall that we're going to be putting outside of our office in downtown Milbridge. And so that will allow us to kind of extend the gardening season quite a bit. It won't be a greenhouse that people, come in to pick out of, but it will be a way to start seedlings and kind of extend the season on both ends, and also to add more opportunities for education. I think also being very conscious of our water usage. I think that's something that we've been just aware of, that this year, specifically this summer, it was a lot of water, and it would be good to really be more conscientious of that. And that might mean timers, that might mean, it's a good question.
Here is a less big picture question to follow up, which is if you use any worm castings in your...
Oh, I love that question. Not in our garden and not in the actual gardens, but we did start, I guess it wasn't last year, but 2 years ago, we did a worm composting unit with the school. And so the school actually started their own worm composting bin, which was really fun. And then we ended up having a lot of interest in the community to have a worm composting class. So we had 2 workshops related to worm composting that was open to community members. A lot of excitement about that. And it hasn't been utilized that well, partly because I've been not the best at marketing it, but we do have a worm harvesting bin that we can rent out to anyone in our local area that's interested in harvesting their worm castings. So, yeah.
It's a great little add-on.
Yeah.
Let's see. A question here is, what are your methods for pest management?
That's a great question too. I think, so we're an organic vegetable garden, so we don't use pesticides or insecticides. How we tend to use row covers as our primary defense against insects, and then really it's just a battle that sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It's with the cucumber beetles, one thing that Janice swears by, which I sometimes question, but Janice swears by it. So if Janice says, is to take one of those insect zapping wands, and then, early in the morning or whenever, basically sneak up to your cucumbers or your squash and hold them over the flowers, and then startle the plant. The cucumber beetles will jump out and they'll all get zapped.
Good tip. Let's see. A question here about the volunteer crew you have, and who decides what work there is for them to do.
Good question. I believe, so that's been probably the thing that we've struggled with the most. It's just kind of, and also have recognized that that's something that we really need to tap into a lot more, because there's a lot of people that really want to help. This year specifically, Janice has been at the Milbridge Commons Gardens a lot, and so she had this clipboard and notebook and kind of takes down people's names and numbers, and when she has specific things that she needs done, like watering or deadheading or weeding, she can reach out to them. Michael and Miriam, his wife, they kind of are running the Red Barn Garden this year, so they have chosen to have 2 volunteer days per week. So Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, they have volunteers come. I think it varies how many people come. We usually have regulars that come, but you know, beyond that, it varies. So
Makes sense. Let's see, a question about bees. I don't know if you have hives at the garden or nearby, but how have your bees done this year? Mine have been struggling to find nectar.
we do not have hives, although that would be incredible. I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. We've seen a bunch of bees, but I'm not sure I can answer the question truthfully.
Let's see, and a question about companion planting. Are you doing much of that?
Yeah, I think to varying degrees. I think sometimes it's easier in many ways to just like plant like a whole bed straight of just in terms of harvesting, planting it straight with lettuce but I do think that I like to companion plant marigolds with a lot of things because I know it's a pest deterrent, and I also just happen to love marigolds, so it's easy to plant them with everything. I know that we plant some like scallions. That's kind of a way, also a pest deterrent. I think it's something that we could look into a lot more. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of many other companion plants, but definitely something that we could look into more.
Wonderful. I have a question I jotted down while you were talking that I was curious about, and I just wondered if the volunteers or folks who came and harvested often had particular varieties that they requested you add, or maybe vegetables in general.
Yeah,
sort of a feedback.
it definitely changes. I think it's fun to I think we tend to stick to the tried and classic varieties. So like provider green beans, for instance. And I think that's mainly because we want, a lot of people maybe don't know exactly what certain varieties are, or even like certain vegetables. I think there's a huge like spectrum of knowledge in terms of vegetables and what is edible or not, or what is tasty or not. And our mission is essentially to get food out to as many people as we can. So we do tend to stick to more of the classic varieties. However, that being said, I know that Janice specifically is very interested in trying some more unique varieties. And last year at the Red Barn, we tried a Romanesco broccoli. And it was so fun to see and those are those broccolis that kind of like have like these weird, like they look like fractals essentially. They're kind of spirally and they're very cool. And it was so fun to see who like, would come over and like look at that. And it's just like some people would have no interest whatsoever, and then some people would be so excited about it. So I think like in the future, as we kind of figure this out a little bit even more, continuing to have a lot of food production, standard varieties, and then also kind of having some experimental gardens. With this year at the children's garden, I grew purple cauliflower, huge hit. We're doing that again. So but
those different colored vegetables I feel like are always a hit with folks.
Yes, definitely with me. So
great question from Eliza here. It seems like the garden grows so many strong community relationships between the gardeners, nonprofit, the volunteers, the kids. Can you talk more about the garden's relationship with MCHT and how that partnership works?
Yeah, main co-planning trust. Yes, so basically it was in 2016 that I think that we reached out to Maine Coast Heritage Trust, and they ended up, how the partnership works between us and them is essentially that they are the caretakers and stewards of this land, this property as a whole. It's a wellness park. It's also a way to conserve land from future development. And we often like talk to each other and kind of discuss, you know, things that we're thinking about, but they kind of have more of a hands-off approach with it. It's interesting. We do have sometimes differences in the way that we do things, so it's interesting to navigate that as two different nonprofits, kind of like trying to go in on a project together and seeing how that works. It's very, very interesting. Many discussions. But they essentially are, yeah, as I said, they essentially are the property stewards and owners of this land, and we kind of are we have our projects there. We're both stewards, I guess, but yeah, so it's a mutually beneficial.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any other questions for Zabeth before we sign off for the evening? I loved all those pictures. The gardens look gorgeous. What a happy place to be gardening.
Please come and visit. The more the merrier. And it's just good to see people out enjoying the outdoors.
Thank you so much for joining us and showing us around. Yes, hopefully in person folks can visit one of these days. And thanks all of you for joining us this evening.